just asking that you guys give me an extra second or two to make sure that we confirm live streaming. I will give you a wave, and then when we're ready, folks, have a great meeting. And my camera will be off, but I will be here if you have any need for me.
Thank you, Brandy.
So we're good to go, folks. Have a great meeting.
Welcome, everyone. As you heard, we're missing Donna today, so it's my pleasure to fill in. And we're very lucky to have the Alzheimer's Society and the Snow Angels here today. Unfortunately, due to a death, Canadian Hearing Aid Society will not be here, but I'm sure the other two will fill in very nicely. And so I'd like to introduce Terrell Boogie. I hope I said that right, and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gwen, and everyone else here joining us this morning. I like Boogie because that's my husband, how our nickname is Boogie, but it's Terrell Bougie, but I like Boogie.
Bougie.
Thank you, Gwen. Bougie. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all, and then we'll get started. There we are. Oh, sorry here, and I'll put it in presentation. Is everyone able to see that slide okay, the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so good morning. My name is Terrell Bougie, and I am one of the public education coordinators with the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County. I've been with the society since 2017. I first joined as a Minds in Motion coordinator, and now this past spring in 2020, I changed roles to public education coordinator. So thank you for inviting me here today to share a little bit about what the Society of Simcoe County does, who we are and what we do. So a little bit about us and some of the services, and I'll go into more detail about our services, but just a general kind of starting point. What we strive to do is provide programs throughout Simcoe County and to assist those people living with a progressive dementia. We serve folks living with dementia as well as care partners and family members. Our hope is to help folks become educated about dementia, learn how to manage some of those symptoms that they might experience if they're living with dementia. And then, of course, you can imagine the stress that results from living with dementia can be huge at times. And so managing that stress and really learning how to build that resiliency, because we know that people can and do live and thrive well in their communities living with dementia. Sometimes it's learning how to build that resiliency piece up. Part of our role is to help access support in the community, which can assist with coping, as well as many other services our First Link Care Navigator brings to people's attention. We have an education session that really plans for future care needs, which is really important, especially for folks living with dementia, if maybe they're needing some advocacy in that area, or perhaps they need a substitute decision maker and helping them make some of their decisions. Understanding grief and loss. We have a course that's called Ambiguous Loss and Grief, and it really is, it's a grieving process sometimes when people are given a diagnosis. And so we help understand what some of that ambiguous loss might look like. And then a really exciting part is connecting our clients with others in a similar situation. And growing those informal support systems is so important. And I know as the Minds in Motion coordinator, I really got to see firsthand how those social opportunities really make a big difference in the lives of those living with dementia. So the social opportunities are huge. And of course, we can all agree with COVID, that's been a little more challenging, but it's really been exciting for us at the Alzheimer's Society to see some of our clients really learn a whole new skill of Zoom and technology and be able to get on board online with some of our programs. So a lot of good things happening there. Throughout Simcoe County, there's approximately 10,000 people living with dementia. Now, we know that number is probably lower than the actual number of folks living with dementia for a variety of reasons. It could be that maybe they haven't got a formal diagnosis yet. Maybe they're just, there's a lot of stigma still attached to living with dementia. So some people may not want to, get that diagnosis quite yet. So we suspect the number is higher than 10,000. But right now on the books, it's approximately 10,000, a little bit over. In 2020 and 21, the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County served 1,086 clients. And on average, we've been experiencing about 44 referrals a month, which is quite substantial and quite high. So we're happy to say that we really do tell our clients that although our referrals are high, we really have a 2 to 4 week window where we do get back to them. Often it's a shorter time than that, but we like to be upfront and say, once you contact our services within 2 to 4 weeks, not months, weeks, we'll be back to you. And then 79% of our clients are direct referrals, meaning that they've come to us on their own. And that's really important because we know that the long wait times in many, many healthcare situations can be long. And so if they come to us first before waiting for their doctors to suggest or give a referral, that means they're getting services 11 months sooner than they would if they waited to get a referral from another healthcare agency. So that's really important. And I really do commend folks for, taking that advocacy piece on their own and coming to us. We don't need a formal diagnosis to get the ball rolling with our services. And so that's really helpful for folks to know, because come to us, the earlier we can get services and get assistance, especially for folks living with dementia, knowing it's a progressive disease, really important to get the ball rolling early. So that's a little bit about statistics with us. Some other statistics, clients by gender and age: 65% of our clients are female, 28% are male, and 7% have chosen not to record their gender. 49% of our clients are seniors, so 65 and of age and older. 32% are adults, and then 19% are unknown. They've maybe chosen not to share their date of birth. I can tell you that we are receiving more interest in some of our services from younger folks. And when I say younger, I'm talking, maybe 20s or 30s, who are supporting a parent perhaps diagnosed with living with dementia. So, sometimes people will think that care partners are maybe spouses or maybe someone who are a senior themselves, but often it's those younger children who are supporting maybe their adults, or their parents who are living with dementia. And so I just had a call last week of someone who was only 28 trying and supporting her mom. So, trying to raise a young family on her own and do her work and go to school, plus support mom. So the numbers are changing, and we're seeing more people at a younger age coming to us for support. So dementia in Canada, I really want to highlight the importance and the gratefulness I am to have you invite me to speak today, because we know what an important topic this is. We know that 1 in 11 Canadians over the age of 65 are living with some type of dementia. So 1 in 11 Canadians, which is quite a high number. And we know that number of people living with dementia will double in less than 20 years. So, right now, currently, they're saying 546,000 Canadians are living with dementia. But by the year 2031, so in 10 years, that number is suspected to increase to 1.4 million. Okay, so more than double in 10 years. And again, that's quite remarkable. Currently, dementia is the #1 disability in Canada. And that's shocking for a lot of people. It was to me. We think about heart disease and strokes and cancers, but currently dementia is the #1 cause of disability in Canada. In statistics, in 2014, it was estimated that 7,500 people in Simcoe County were living with dementia. And now here we are in 2021, and it's over 10,000. More than 10,000 people in Simcoe County are living with dementia. Here's a staggering fact, just to kind of really bring home the importance of it's not just folks living with dementia who are impacted, it's care partners as well, of course. And in 2011, family caregivers spent $444 million of unpaid hours a year looking after someone who's living with dementia. So $444 million in 2011. And that represents $11 billion in lost income and 227,000 full-time jobs. So 227 actually, and 760,000 full-time jobs lost for folks living with, like, that time of folks caring for someone with dementia as unpaid workers. So it really is substantial, and it really does show that it takes a village to support folks living with dementia. So once considered a normal part of aging, Alzheimer's disease and other dementias are now seen as a distinctive disease that are seriously affecting 546,000 Canadians. And as I mentioned, just to give you that statistic again, by 2031, that number is going to double or more than double, right? That's what that's what the current trends are showing us. So what is dementia? I guess that's a good starting point before we get into all the services that we do provide. So dementia itself is not a disease. Sometimes people will say, oh, I've got the disease of dementia. And so just sharing that dementia itself is not the disease. It's really talking about the symptoms that accompany some diseases. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But when we're talking about dementia, we're really talking about those symptoms. And those symptoms often include loss of memory, judgment and reasoning, changes in mood and behavior, and a decline in overall cognitive functioning. So those are the symptoms that generally accompany dementia. If someone's living with dementia, any questions about that? Because sometimes that can be a little, people sometimes get hung up on that, but just recognizing that when we're talking about dementia, we're talking about the symptoms, and those symptoms are often the ones listed here: the loss of memory, judgment and reasoning, the changes in mood and behavior, and then that decline in cognitive function.
Cheryl, what number of people would have behavior changes that would be dramatic?
Right. And I don't have the current, I don't actually have a statistic on the number of people who would have behavior changes, just knowing, and again, that's a great question, Gwen, because we know that when we're caring for people living with dementia, it's so individualized to the person. One person living with dementia does not look the same as another person living with dementia. And all of that is based on what part of the brain has been affected and what part, what controls that brain does in our body. Okay, so for example, our frontal part of our brain, our frontal lobe, it's our reasoning and our judgment, whereas our emotional control is more within our hippocampus. So we don't have statistics on that, and it's a hard question to say, only because everyone presents differently, and some of these symptoms that we're going to talk about, a person living with dementia may experience some of these symptoms, or they may experience a few of these symptoms. It's not to say that if you have dementia, you're going to experience all of these things, but you certainly could. I hope that helps answer your question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I love this slide here because we kind of use this umbrella to picture that dementia is kind of an umbrella term for the symptoms that accompany many diseases. So Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body disease, vascular dementia, and mixed dementia are all diseases that you would see symptoms of dementia. Okay, so again, dementia is not a disease, but a set of symptoms that accompany a disease. So if you're living with, Alzheimer's disease, this accounts for 64% of people living with dementia have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And this Alzheimer's disease often presents in a gradual progression. So you may start to notice almost like a little incline, very gradual. You may start to notice a few signs and symptoms, memory loss being one of the first ones for Alzheimer's disease that we would probably recognize. And then those changes in the brain happen over gradual incline over time. So Alzheimer's disease is usually very gradual, and it's progressive. We can't reverse it, okay? And it's short-term memory loss is usually one of the very first symptoms that we see when we're talking about Alzheimer's disease. vascular dementia over here, this is more talking about, it accounts for about 20% of people living with dementia. So 20% of people living with dementia have vascular dementia. And this occurs when there's an impaired blood flow to the brain. So often if a person has had a stroke, as a result of that, they might have vascular dementia because that impaired blood flow to the brain, the blood is not getting to that part of the brain. And so as a result, the brain cells die off in that area. Okay. And that's about 20% of people living with dementia are living with vascular dementia.
Excuse me, Carol.
Yes.
How bad do these symptoms have to be before you get a diagnosis of dementia as opposed to a mild cognitive impairment?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I'm going to bring up a slide in just a few moments that talk about some of our 10 warning signs and maybe differentiate between normal aging and when it's maybe a bit more cause of concern. That's a great question. And that's often a question we get. How do I know that my symptoms are significant enough that I need to kind of delve a little more deeper into this? Great question. So in a few slides, I'm going to share that, I hope. I'll answer your question, hopefully. Yeah. All right. So again, just really important to recognize that these dementias, I said at the earlier part of our slide that we deal with at the Alzheimer's Society progressive dementias and irreversible dementias. There are some dementias that are reversible, and those are different than the ones that we talk about at the Alzheimer's Society. So types of reversible dementia might be someone who has a thyroid condition. And if their medication is not, being taken correctly, or if maybe they haven't been diagnosed with a thyroid condition, those can mimic almost or give you symptoms of dementia that might be like memory loss or confusion. But once you treat that thyroid condition, and your dementia goes away. So there are some dementias that are irreversible. Another example of that could be a urinary tract infection. If you have a urinary tract infection and your body's trying to fight this infection, you might get a little, foggy in the mind. You might have some memory loss. You might have some of the symptoms of dementia, but once we treat that infection, then those symptoms of dementia go away. At the Alzheimer's Society and all these dementias that are listed, diseases that are listed on our screen right now, these are irreversible dementias. They cannot be stopped, even with medication. Medication can manage the symptoms a little better sometimes, but it cannot stop the progression. So just important to recognize that this is a progressive, irreversible dementias that we deal with at the Alzheimer's Society, that we help folks with, okay? And this is the main question, and Pat, this is hopefully going to answer some of your question. We often get asked at the Alzheimer's Society, when do I need to be concerned? There's certain aspects of aging that are normal aspects of aging, and then there's some that are a little bit more than normal. And when do we need to come concerned? So usually I'll say to folks, when you're everyday life is being impacted, okay, then that's why when we have to kind of be concerned. So when these changes that are listed here, and I'll go through them one by one, when these changes and warning signs begin to affect everyday functioning and activities of daily living, then there's a big sign that maybe we need to investigate with our doctor, okay? And these are warning signs, different than just memory loss. We often, as I said earlier, think about memory loss, but really there's many more aspects to dementia that we're gonna learn about today if we don't know already. So that memory loss affecting day-to-day functioning, normal aging, getting more forgetful as we age, that is a normal part of aging. Okay, so we can all expect as we age that we're gonna have a little bit of maybe forgetfulness. But the difference is folks living with dementia, they don't remember things when prompted. So I'll give you an example. You've made a lunch date with a friend, and you've made a lunch date for 12 o'clock at the mall with a friend. With COVID, I don't know if that's possible, but I'm just using this as an example. And so you forget your lunch appointment, and your friend calls you and said, "Oh my goodness, Mary, I thought we were supposed to meet for lunch at 12 at the mall." And person with normal aging may say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy getting ready for Christmas that I forgot to write it in my calendar, or I wrote it on the wrong day. I'm sorry, can we reschedule? With dementia, to kind of highlight the difference, is when their friend calls to remind them that they've missed lunch, they may not have any recollection of even making that lunch appointment and saying, no, we didn't have lunch plans. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't write it in my book and you must have forgotten the date. They don't remember when prompted. So that's kind of the difference between normal aging and living with dementia, is even when prompted, you don't remember that you've made this lunch date, or you don't remember that you've, went shopping yesterday. So that's kind of the memory loss part, to kind of compare normal aging and aging living with dementia. Difficulty performing familiar tasks. So maybe, for example, someone has prepared dinner for the last 50 years and enjoys cooking and has always been a wonderful cook, but now is having a little more challenging time making a meal. Right? So maybe they can't find the ingredients. Maybe they've forgotten that recipe that they knew off by heart, and they've made it the same recipe for years and years. Or maybe forgets how to use the stove properly, right? And when I say properly, I don't mean properly, I meant safely, sorry. Maybe they've left the stove on a few times, and so now they're kind of nervous to use that stove again, right? And so there's ways that we can help folks to still use the stove, just with some opportunities for education and some being mindful of what strategies we put in place. Problems with language. These are one of the warning signs of folks living with dementia. And again, I think there's all been a time when we've been in a situation where we have a hard time finding those words, or you have something on the tip of your tongue and you just can't get it out, but eventually you remember it, right? Someone living with dementia is a little bit more than that, because their problems with language may impact their daily conversation, right? So they might be thinking of a word up here, but their brain is not getting that message to their mouth to get the right word out. Say for an example, if there's a gentleman and he wants to go out for a walk, and he says to his son, can you please go get me my cup? And so the son goes over to the kitchen, gets a cup, fills it with water, brings it back. And the guy says, why are you bringing me a cup? Or why are you bringing me that? I want my cup. And he says, well, this is your cup. But what the gentleman's thinking, he's going out for a walk, he wants his cap. But his brain has not allowed him to say cap, it's coming out as cup. So that can be very frustrating, obviously. And so that language kind of impairs our daily conversations, perhaps. So that's a little bit different than normal aging, where we just have a word on the tip of our tongue and we just can't remember it in the moment, perhaps. Disorientation of time and place. That's another one of our warning signs of folks living with dementia. And this can be, mixing up days, getting lost in familiar places. And this is often one of the number one reasons why why some folks living with dementia are out wandering, right? They're out maybe wandering because someone with dementia may suddenly find themselves accessing memories from years and years ago, but in today's current environment. So maybe perhaps someone wakes up and they're wanting to get to work, and their memory is accessing their work life from 40 years ago. So they're out walking to go to work, when in reality they're retired now and they're not aware of their current environment. Okay, so that disorientation of time and place can happen, definitely. And without memories, really hard to orientate ourselves to our current environment sometimes. Right? We're accessing memories from maybe 40 years ago, but we're living in today. So those they don't jive, do they? They're different environments. Poor or decreased judgment. I know at times I've had poor or decreased judgment, and that certainly can happen to each and every one of us, I'm sure. However, our folks living with dementia, it's, these are people, some of the symptoms that might be cause of concern is maybe a person's always made really good judgments and really good decisions all their life. And now we're doing things a little bit out of character. Perhaps maybe it's a hot sunny day and they've got 3 layers of clothing on and perhaps, flip-flops, as opposed, they're going to get overheated, but they don't recognize that they're going to get overheated. So that might be an example of poor decreased judgment. Okay, maybe not dressing for the weather, dressing inappropriately for the weather, not recognizing the weather and the impacts it will have on us if we don't have appropriate clothing. Problems with abstract thinking. So these are folks living with dementia that, you know, maybe balancing a checkbook is becoming a little more challenging. Things with numbers often can present a problem, like math questions, or trouble playing games like cribbage, you know, those abstract things. Misplacing things. So again, you know, these are signs that we've all done. I think I've misplaced my reading glasses so many times I can't even tell you, but I recognize that I've misplaced them. So that's a good thing, right? Often our folks living with dementia, they don't recognize that they've lost something perhaps. And misplacing things, you know, normal aging might be that we misplace things, but then we can usually find them in appropriate places. For example, our car keys on the counter, our reading glasses on our night table. But folks living with dementia, we may find these things in unusual places. You might find a library book in the fridge, or milk in the microwave. And it happens because they're disorientated to their environment, perhaps. And so they're putting things in places we normally wouldn't put them. But then when we say, oh, I found this milk in your microwave, they don't recognize they put it there. And they'll say, no, you're playing a game on me. Why would I put milk in the microwave? Because I would never do that. Right? Why would I do that? And so our folks living with dementia don't recognize that that's in an inappropriate place sometimes. And again, like I say, that can, you know, if they're misplacing things and not recognizing they've put them in an unusual place, it can be embarrassing if someone points it out, but it could also be like I say, they become suspicious that we're playing tricks on them. Right? So sometimes we'll see that folks living with dementia might become a little suspicious because in their mind, everything's okay. And we're the ones saying that things are out of order. So become suspicious sometimes. Changes in mood and behavior, depending on which part of the brain has been affected, right? And is causing these changes. We can expect maybe, you know, all of us, again, we all have moments of happiness, sadness, and loneliness, perhaps, or whatever those moods may be. But someone with dementia, dementia disrupts our emotional control center of our brain. And so we can see mood swings, and they can happen quite suddenly, right? So sometimes you might have, you know, someone who's always been very, you know, maybe very not the life of the party, and someone who's more quiet at parties, or not that really social person. And all of a sudden they've had changes in mood and behavior because they're living with dementia. Now they're the very outgoing person, or they're the person that's maybe swearing who never swore in their life. So maybe those moods and behaviors are changing due to changes occurring in their brain. Yeah. And changes in personality. Again, a happy person might become irritable and angry. And, you know, a person, like I said earlier too, who has always been shy and reserved, maybe becomes disinhibited. Okay. And then that loss of initiative is another warning sign that we see. And sometimes loss of initiative, you know, it's different than depression, right? It's because with someone living with depression, it might have low initiative, but it's because of that mental health condition, they don't have the drive or the energy to even get things started. Our folks living with dementia, it's not that they don't want to be doing things, they may just not know how to get themselves started. So that initiation and that motivation piece might be lacking a little more when you're living with dementia. So kind of that part of our brain that switches us on, folks living with dementia, their brain can be affected in that area. And so they don't have that switch on like that to get them going, right? So we know, you know, I used to work with a woman who loved music, and she would always be the first one to sign up for the music groups. And then over time, she wasn't signing up anymore. And I suspected it wasn't because she didn't want to do it. I suspected she just had lost that initiative. And it was true, because when we assisted her to the music program, she thoroughly enjoyed them and was engaged in the moment. So it's just that initiative, and didn't ask, right? She had lost that reasoning to say, well, if I want to go to music, I need to ask for someone. She was in a wheelchair and wasn't able to go on her own and wouldn't have been able to find her way. But just that loss of initiative she experienced. And so those are some pretty big warning signs. And again, it's when these warning signs really impact our day-to-day living that there's cause for concern. Because all of us might be feeling some of these warning signs, over time. It doesn't mean you're living with dementia or you need to be concerned, but when they start to impact your day-to-day living and you're not able to carry out the tasks that you once did safely and with, with ease and confidence, and that's where we maybe say, maybe I need to go talk to my healthcare provider and just really get a little handle on and see what we're dealing with. Any questions about those warning signs? It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And anytime, if there's any questions, just please, go ahead and ask, or we can save them for the end. But yeah, I welcome questions. So a little bit about Alzheimer's societies in Canada, and I'll just go quickly over this. But Alzheimer's Society of Canada was formed in 1978. So federally, 10 members, there were 10 provinces that joined. In 1983, Alzheimer's Society of Ontario was formed, and that really had federation agreements with 29 independent local societies, which is really exciting. And then in 1985, the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County came about, and that's where we have that regional advocacy and delivering of programs right within Simcoe County, which is so important. So our vision, missions, and values at the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County, our mission, and I can truly say that the people I work with and our board and our all the staff at the Alzheimer's Society, we are so fortunate because they walk the walk. We truly do believe and care for people living with dementia, and it's evident in everything we do. We just had our staff Christmas party last week, and you would think a staff Christmas party, you would be out having fun, and we certainly did that. But the core value of, thinking about our people living with dementia through COVID and everything else at the forefront of mind. So truly our mission is to improve the quality of life of people living with dementia and their care partners throughout the provision of support services, education, social programs, and research and support. Our vision is that people living with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias and their care partners live and thrive well in their community. And we see examples of this all the time, right? Just because you receive a diagnosis of dementia or living with dementia does not mean that you can have to stop doing things. You live well and thrive in your community. Sometimes that's with supports, sometimes that's learning strategies, how to overcome some of the challenges presented. But we really know that people can live well and thrive in their communities, and that's so exciting. And we want to share that vision with others. And then we have our care philosophy and our value, which is at the core of our values. And it's really collaboration, bringing people together to learn how to best support folks. Accountability, where, we want to be accountable at our organization. We want to know that we're doing a good job in servicing the folks that we are meant to service. Respect, always respect and excellence. So those are our mission, vision, and care statements and value statements. Pretty self-explanatory, but it really is exciting for me to work on a team that really, truly walks that walk, and I love that. Person-centered philosophy, and I think it was maybe Gwen at the beginning that asked a question, and I said it's a really tough question to answer, but a great question, Gwen, because I think you asked about how many folks will have reactive behaviors. And I said, it's really hard to tell because each and every person living with dementia is so unique. And so we really do believe in that person-centered philosophy. Our programs and services are based on person-centered philosophy, which really means that we recognize that each individual we serve, whether it be someone living with dementia, whether it be a care partner, a family member, they have unique values, personalities, a personal history, and a right to dignity and respect. So we know that each and every one of us are different. And so we really try and personalize our services and have that person-centered approach. We believe that people living with dementia have a right to participate in decisions that guide their life. And this person-centered concept, of unconditional positive regard is woven throughout all programs and services and works to counteract the stigma that has been attached to Alzheimer's disease and others dementias. So we know that we're doing a really good job to get education out there and to get some, public service announcements out there. We know we're doing good on that, but there's still that stigma attached with dementia, isn't there? So that's one of our barriers that we try to overcome. But we hope by showing folks and doing, talks like this, we share that, people do live and thrive well in their communities living with dementia. So that's the important piece not to forget. Just because you receive a diagnosis of living with dementia, there's still many good things that are kind of going to happen, right? And I think a lot of times there's a misconception around that. But we know that people live and thrive well in their communities, and we support them to do that. Person-centered language. I often like to put this slide in because sometimes the language we use can help reduce stigma. And so it's important to us at the Alzheimer's Society to think about language when we're talking. And some examples of that, and it's basically to not label people, right? Because if I have a diagnosis of dementia, it doesn't mean that Terrell's demented. That doesn't mean that, right? It means Terrell's a person who's living with dementia. It's like a person lives with a diagnosis of cancer, a person lives well with a diagnosis of dementia. Sometimes we talk about care partner, right? And that's maybe more positive than someone who has to help someone living with dementia. Or we talk about the effects of caregiving rather than the demands of caregiving. It's just that connotation, demands of, it means that it's implying perhaps that the person living with dementia is demanding of people's services when really they need assistance with, right? We used to, back in the day, call people who collected items, we used to call them hoarders. But it wasn't fair to call them hoarders because we know that it means that they're intentionally taking things and hiding them away maybe somewhere. A person living with dementia are not doing these things intentionally because they have brain changes happening, and it's a result, those behaviors are exhibited, right? So I know that we used to say aggressive behavior, and certainly people living with dementia, we don't use aggressive behavior because again, it implies that they're intending to cause harm. Really, it's more reactive behavior because they're responding to their environment. So we'd just like to bring that in because our language certainly can increase or decrease stigma in our communities. So just a little bit on that. And then our funding. Just so people know, donations and fundraising events cover 40% of our total expenses over the year. So 40% of what we are able to do all comes from donations and fundraising, which is a pretty big part of an operational budget, I think we can all agree. And our fundraising events meet only part of this goal. So we really do rely on individual, memorial, and corporate donations, as well as third-party fundraising events for the rest of our budget. And I'll go a little bit more into that. Here's a chart. I always like to show folks how our organization is structured and all the moving parts to it. So we have our board of directors at the very top, which is critical to what we do. And like I say, we're very fortunate. I was invited to our annual general meeting this spring and very fortunate to meet a lot of the directors of our board, our board of directors, and just a bunch of folks who really were lucky to have people from different backgrounds in our board of directors. So really a well-rounded group of folks to help us and guide us to meet our philosophies, values, and goals. Debbie Islam is our Chief Executive Officer. We have an admin assistant, of course, to help us with all the many duties that are associated with that. Laura Lynn Barassa is our Manager of Education and Support Programs, and she oversees our First Link Care Navigator, our Family Support Coordinators, myself in Education, and another Education Coordinator, and our Minds in Motion Coordinator. And then we have our Events Coordinator, a Fund Development Coordinator, and a Volunteer Resource Coordinator. So lots of moving parts. And I'm proud to say that we've got a really amazing team who works well together and really, really puts forth so much effort to make sure that our folks living with dementia and their care partners have a really good place to come to receive support. and really get that first impression. I love when I hear from people saying, I was so nervous to call your office because I don't want to hear what you have to offer because I don't want to be living with this dementia. But I called and I learned that there's so many ways that you can help us, and we can learn and we can grow and we can thrive. And when I hear people say that, it makes me really, really proud of where I work. So our programs and services, what do we offer? We offer first link care navigation, supportive counseling, intensive case management, enhancing carers, which is currently on hold and just because of a staffing issue, but we are in the running to still be filling that position. We offer support groups, social groups, first link learning series, and our Minds in Motion program. And I'll just take a few minutes to go through each of these a little bit more in detail. Our first link, this is a program that connects people living with dementia and or their care partners to the information, supports, and services they need as early as possible throughout the continuum of the disease, And I've highlighted as early as possible because studies do show that before people start to recognize symptoms of dementia, they may have been living with these changes 5 to 7 years already. So maybe people are living with some of, changes are happening in their brain. Sometimes it's 5 to 7 years before they even recognize that these changes are happening. And they start to recognize the symptoms are impacting their daily life. So as soon as we can get into to start all of this information and support services, earlier the better, especially as we know living with dementia, which is progressive, meaning that it's going to carry on over time. Our first link care navigator, this person assists clients. So basically they're our first point when you come to the Alzheimer's Society. If you've not had services before, then you'd meet with our first link care navigator, and she's really good about connecting you with all of the internal programs and services we offer at the Alzheimer's Society, but also helping you in the community and setting you up and making you aware of other opportunities that are supports in the community. So, our focus is clients with a new diagnosis, or the diagnosis is pending. If someone doesn't have a diagnosis already from their doctor, we really encourage them, don't wait till you get that diagnosis. Come and see us in the meantime, okay? And we'll start getting some of these things in place. You don't need to have a formal diagnosis to receive our services. Our support services, we've got wonderful counselors, family support coordinators, and their role is to offer that one-to-one supportive counseling, which is so important. That can be for the person living with dementia. It could also be for care partners supporting someone living with dementia. We offer support groups, and that's a really good opportunity for folks to come together with their peers, people living in a similar situation, to really have an opportunity to vent and learn from others. Right now with COVID, things have looked a little different. I'm happy to say that our support groups are back up and running in person, especially in the new year and all in communities, but we're still offering that Zoom opportunity as well. 2 monthly social gatherings. Right now, this is on hiatus, but normally in Barrie and Aurelia, we would have a monthly coffee club where we would get together. In Barrie, it's at the Golden Griddle. Again, it's on hiatus right now with COVID, but get together for a coffee social and really just a nice social opportunity to get out and chit chat and talk about what's happening. And then, of course, our support services are great at giving information and referrals. So that's our first thing. That's our family support coordinators. Our intensive case management, one of our family support coordinators takes on intensive case management. And these are supporting people that are maybe living in our communities with limited or no support. So maybe it's a person that's suspecting that they are living with dementia. Maybe they've got a new diagnosis, but they really don't have anyone to support them. Maybe they don't have family or friends in a position to help them. So this family support coordinator would take on that case as an intensive case. They really can, help with housing, finances, medication management, health and wellness. And, they may or may not be living alone. Just because someone's living with someone, it doesn't mean that the person they're living with is able to manage all of these things or is able to, perhaps. Okay. So please know that just because often if someone's living with dementia, they may not recognize some of these changes that are experiencing. So it might take an outside voice to help them recognize that they're experiencing some of these changes. And if you don't have a family member or a friend to kind of help you with all these things, then we have Heidi at our office as our intensive case manager. First Link Learning Series. This is one of the areas that I cover as an education coordinator. And we offer many great learning series that helps people learn about what dementia is, learn strategies to help cope better and live and thrive well. So some of them are our First Steps, which is a program that the person living with dementia would attend with their care partner. Some of our programs are for people living with dementia. Some of our programs, education programs, are for care partners. Some are together. And then some of our education opportunities are with community partners as well. Minds in Motion. So this is a really amazing program. And I don't say that because I used to be the coordinator, but to me, it's just a great 8-week program that combines physical activity with cognitive stimulation. So kind of exercise for our body and our brains. Currently, it's being run over Zoom as well as in person. And so we were happy to say that after I think about 18 months having a break, we have started back in person. And the ones that are running are up and running well, and we're trying to delve out into other parts of Simcoe County. Currently, we have in person starting in the new year in Wasaga Beach, Bradford, and Barrie, and then online opportunities as well. So it's an 8-week program for exercise and cognitive stimulation, but what really comes out of it, and what I loved about it, was those social connections. Folks living with dementia and their care partners are getting together with other folks living with dementia and their care partners and having a heck of a good time. And the relationships formed in this group, I can tell you, are invaluable. I had a family I had in my Alliston group, and they're happy for me to share. I'm not going to share names, but they love me to tell the story. I had 3 couples. Well, I had actually 8 couples coming to my group, but 3 couples really hit it off. 3 of the gentlemen, and it was 3 couples, the gentlemen all were living with dementia, and the wives were all the care partners, and they felt alone in their community. And after the end of 2 Minds in Motion sessions in 2019, they all went to Niagara Falls together to go watch some shows and go do some gambling and stuff. And you know what each of those wives told me? They said, I couldn't have done this on my own, because if I had to leave and go to the bathroom, how would my husband, who lives with dementia, be safe in that environment? So now they had three couples together, and they went away for the weekend. And they said, I didn't think I'd ever be going away for a weekend again, because it was so overwhelming. And the stories they told, well, I'm sure there was the stories they didn't tell too. They just had a blast. It was really lovely for me to hear that this program, the social program, brought them together, and it opened up so many opportunities. And that's just one example. So it's exciting stuff. I just wanted to put here a picture of the map of Simcoe County, and just let you know that we fall under the Central Health Team. So we've it used to be the LIN, and now they've changed to the Central Health Team. So our funding comes through Ontario Health. Well, part of it. And then, as I said, the other part is due from fundraising and donations. So I won't go through every sub-region, but just know that we do cover, Barrie, 14% of seniors in Barrie we serve, and this accounts for 39% of our client base. So, 40% of our client base lives in Barrie, and Barrie's a larger community than most others in Simcoe County, or if not, of course, it's the largest. So that accounts for more of our clients due to that. Couchiching sub-region accounts for 20% of our client base, and this would include Aurelia, Oro-Medonte, Severn, and Romera. North Simcoe subregion, 8% of our client base, and that involves Midland, Penetanguishene, Tiny, and Tay townships. Pardon me. Southern Georgian Bay, this is 12% of our client base, and that would include Collingwood, Wasaga Beach, and Clearview Township. And then South Simcoe, this is 11% of our client base, and this would capture Alliston, Bradford, half of Essa, New Tecumseh, and Adajah. Sorry, I'm not
adjacent to.
Thank you. Can you say that again?
I think it's adjacent to.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Any
Adula
questions about the
Tosarantia.
area?
You mean
It
Adula?
was Adula. There's a letter missing.
Adula Township.
Adula Toserantio.
Thank you. And I will make that correction. I appreciate you telling me that. Thank you
No
so
problem.
much. All right, so referrals. How do you make a referral? So I've put a link here, and I can even send it out if people want to share it, or I know that the slides have been shared with someone. So this is how you would make a referral. But if you don't have this form, don't worry. You can simply pick up the phone and call our office, and we can do it all through the phone. I do have our contact information at the end of our slide deck. Referrals are processed and go through an intake process. So, and then they're kind of disseminated to staff based on various reasons for the referral. If it's an intensive case, it would go to our intensive case manager. If it's someone in Wasaga Beach, it would go to the, each family support coordinator is responsible for different sub areas. And so we also know that sometimes we have to triage our referrals, because if we're not getting a lot of referrals in Alliston, that family support coordinator might say to the person in Barrie who's received a lot of referrals, hey, can I help you out? So it really is that team and collaborative approach, pardon me. And then obviously we triage based on risk assessment. As I said earlier, we always tell folks, due to the increased number of referrals we're experiencing, our goal is to get back to folks within 2 to 4 weeks. However, that being said, if based on risk, if it was a higher risk, then we would take that into consideration. So ways you can help. We can all take steps to reduce the stigma of dementia. So that's a really good way to help. And just by taking part in this series today and this, learning a little bit more or refreshing what you already knew, we're hoping that that's going to help lessen the stigma of dementia in our communities. Treating people with dignity and respect. I think I should treat everyone with I should take out the dementia part, because we all treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless on their cognitive capabilities or not, right? And so I think that's a human thing, that we treat everyone with dignity and respect. But I put don't make assumptions, because sometimes once people receive that diagnosis, some folks, they might think, oh, well, they're not incapable of doing maybe things anymore, when we know that's not the case. Still very capable and able to do many, many things, just maybe in a different way, maybe with some risk management involved. So not making assumptions is huge. And then learning the facts, learning how many people are living with dementia, learning ways to help. Be a friend, continue to offer your support to your friends. If I had a gentleman in one of my groups, and he shared with me that he had a group of friends who, holy, I'm really talking here. I'm sorry. I just realized the time. Just be a friend, continue to make those phone calls and really reach out to folks, whether they are living with dementia or not, right? But especially when they're living with dementia, because they may not have, we talked about that initiation piece. Maybe they don't have the initiative to pick up the phone and call you, right? So just reaching out and being that friend and continuing to be that friend, and speaking out. If you see something that you think, that's not cool, or that's not being a good advocate, don't be afraid to speak up and say, people living with dementia are people that are living well. People are still capable of doing things. If we hear things that aren't true, facts that we know aren't true, like people with dementia can't do anything, that's a fact, that's a statement that's not true, then speak up. Speak up and say, actually, I was just attending this talk, and really people with dementia can live and thrive well if they're supported, when they're supported, right? The ways you can help. So as I mentioned, it's always necessary for us to be raising funds. So participate in a fundraising event. One of our biggest fundraising event is our Walk for Memories, which happens every spring. And so that's a great opportunity to get out, raise awareness, advocacy, and participate in a great fundraising event. Ways people can help are volunteering your time, learning about our programs and seeing which program is a fit for you, and learning how to volunteer. We have some volunteers who do Speakers Bureau, some that work at our health fairs, some that support the minds in motion and education programs. So lots of great. Marguerite Glanfield is our volunteer coordinator, and she just celebrated this year 25 years of working for the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County. And she is really a driving force behind a lot of the great work that we do. We certainly couldn't do it without volunteers, and Marguerite's a great example of 25 years at a business. That and nowadays especially, right? So pretty remarkable. And so, as I said, the Society receives only 50% of our funds needed to provide the programs and services at our current level. So 50% from the government, that funds our current level, but we certainly know that people living with dementia, the numbers are rising. So we would hope to rise our services to meet those numbers. So that's why, the fundraising part is so big as well. So special events like the walk can help us, and coffee break can help raise funds. Private donations, including planned giving, can help us raise funds, and then support from community groups and service clubs. They often, our hope is that they will keep us in mind when they're doing some of their generous giving. And then this is how you can get a hold of us. We are on Facebook and Twitter, so I've left our information there. But if you're ever just not sure, how do I go about getting, and I don't know what website or where to go, simply pick up the phone and give us a call. We'd be happy to speak with you. Happy if our admin assistant, she'll get the ball rolling and point you in the right direction. And again, just sooner you reach out, the better, or even sharing with friends and family. If someone is thinking, should I call or not call? No harm in calling and getting that ball rolling. Yeah. So thank you so much. I recognize I talked for a bit longer than I probably anticipated to or was going to, but then I did hear there was a less speaker, so I took advantage of that time. I hope that was okay. Lucy, I believe you have your hand up.
Hi, Carol. It's Lucia. I miss you guys over at Alzheimer's. We used to share the building with you.
Yes.
Good to have you on. Great presentation. 2 questions, and I think we've lost a couple of our male presence there. 65% women. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference about women having dementia or Alzheimer's, any of those, as opposed to men? I think it's 2 to 1. And then my other question is, what would be the actual process for diagnosis? Because I don't think you diagnose at Alzheimer's Society.
Correct.
But how would someone get that diagnosis? Just not sure what the process is these days. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, certainly. So thank you for those questions, and we miss you too in our 20 Ann Street office. The men and the women, so generally numbers are higher for women, as I said earlier, and we're not quite 100% sure why that is, other than generally women live longer than men. And we know that dementia doesn't mean that if you live to 100, you're going to be living with dementia, but we do know that the percentages as we live longer, because age is one of the risk factors, we know that the longer you live, the more chances of you receiving a diagnosis or living with dementia are true. So women live longer than men. That's one reason. Also, there's a little bit of talk, but not it's not proven, or it's, but there's talk about hormones in women and different hormones changes. And so that could have an impact on it, but that's not, that's just a thought as of now. That's not it's a thought. It's not a researched, evidence-based answer, just a thought that the hormones have something to do with. Yeah. And then in terms of diagnosis, you're right. And thank you. I didn't mention that in my presentation, and I'm going to include it next time. We don't do diagnosis or give diagnosis at our office. That's done through your family health person, whether that be your doctor, nurse practitioner. But certainly what we can do is lead you on the right path and some of the questions you might want to ask when you go in to visit your doctor. So what I can do, if you like, is I can forward some resources on getting a diagnosis to, I believe Brandy is my contact, and maybe she could disseminate that information to everyone on the call today, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Great. Evan.
Hi, thanks. I'm just curious. I know that symptoms can't be reversed or cured, but does increased sort of engagement and enrichment slow the progression? Is that possible to sort of slow things down?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, we know that we know that dementia is progressive and that there's no turning back the clock and it's not irreversible, but you're right. Engaging in activities such as exercise, where you have more blood going through your body, your heart's pumping and that blood's going, more oxygen's getting to your brain, that can certainly help, as well as cognitive activities, as word games and social interaction and using our brain. It's just like our muscles in our body. Our brain is, the more you use it, the better off it is as well. And our brain has the capacity, if a part of our brain has been affected, say like a stroke, and the blood flow is not getting it, and that part of the brain is not doing its potential, our brain has the ability to create new pathways. So our brain has the ability to generate these new pathways. And so it has the opportunity, like I said, it's not going to reverse symptoms, but it can help you and slow down the progression. That's an awesome question, Evan. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Anne-Marie.
Hi, Carol. Great
Hello.
to see you. Lovely presentation. And I did have a question. I'll mention it broadly, but in the context of COVID, and we've been hearing a bit even through Alzheimer Society partners like the North and Muskoka Specialized Geriatric Services around confinement syndrome. So I didn't know if you're able to speak to anything, maybe tying to Evan's question around progression, but are we actually finding, delirium is one kind of symptom of confinement syndrome. And I'm not sure maybe if that's broader context for another conversation with the Seniors Advisory Committee if members are not aware of confinement syndrome. But can you share if we're seeing particularly seniors that might be more isolated through COVID, and has it had an impact on the progression of the disease course?
Sure. And so I don't know that we've done any formal studies as of yet, but I can certainly tell you feedback from our care partners is just as you've indicated, Emery, is, we recognize the importance of those social opportunities. And confinement syndrome, it's not only not being able to get out to the coffee shop with friends, with friends for coffee, but it's also a lack of a lot of services that have not been up and running in person either. So, for example, our folks who are supported by day programs, they've done an amazing job with getting them back up and running as public health allows. However, it's limited capacity for good reason, for safety. But, it used to be maybe 20 people at a day program, and now there's 3, or I don't know the numbers. I'm just going from what I hear from my clients. So certainly the opportunities are less. And we have heard from care partners, as well as folks living with dementia and other community partners, that certainly we're seeing the progression increase. Or symptoms increasing, the severity of them increasing, because again, Evan, your question, can we slow down the progression? And by engaging in social opportunities, it's getting our brain working and those neurons are firing. And so that's awesome when we're sitting home alone and not having all these opportunities. And if we're living with dementia, not able to initiate some of these things, then we're seeing a decline more so. And I don't have statistics because I don't know that they've been done yet or not that I'm aware of, but reports from folks living with dementia, care partners, community partners certainly support what you're saying, Anne-Marie, for sure. It's a big thing, and it's even the respite for the care partners, right? Like you might have had someone to come in for 3 hours, and a lot of those services are still happening. I don't want to say that they're not, but it's very agency specific, I believe. But even meeting together, like, folks living with dementia, I applaud my clients and I give them so much credit for, 90-year-old gentleman, and him and I spent half a day learning how to Zoom, but he did it. And he showed up to all my programs, not mine, but our programs. But there's many people you can understand, especially folks living with dementia who may be having, limited attention span or attention deficits. This platform is not conducive for a lot of our folks, right? Especially folks living with dementia, they don't often see in 3 dimensions like we do. They see in 2 dimensions. And so it's really hard, how are all these people right in front of me? So although we've done a really good job of servicing our clients to the best of our ability, it's been a challenge, I won't lie, to reach those folks who maybe don't have the technology or just don't have the interest in online. And so that has been a challenge. And as a result of that, we started a volunteer-friendly visiting program, which has overcome those obstacles for folks. So we're doing our best to reach everyone. But we even had tablets that we could loan out to people if they didn't have their own tablet, which was really amazing. And I apologize, I forget the initiative that was through, but it's taken a community effort. And I have to tell you, one thing that's really exciting also is we don't feel alone at the Alzheimer's Society, because all these changes have been happening with everyone. So other community partners are reaching out to us. How can we help you and how can you help us? So we're all really trying, and throughout Simcoe County, I feel, to have that collaborative approach. And it's because we all believe in the people we serve, right? We all want to do the best that we can do. So like I say, I'm really proud to work for the Alzheimer's Society. I've always worked for people living with dementia and throughout my career. And I just think this is a great opportunity. And yeah.
That's great. Thank you for all you do, and my appreciation for speaking to kind of the hybrid model and how you've adapted through COVID, because the Society and other community members shows the strength of your partnerships across Simcoe County. But you've also, I think, done a really brilliant job around adapting to support individuals through this.
Thank you so much. And you're just on mute, Gwen, sorry.
Thank you, Terrell, so much for the presentation. It was concise and I learned a lot. Thank you for all you do. There are so many things affecting seniors, and I know I always worry about it because of the sheer numbers of people who are going to get dementia, and every time I forget a word. But anyhow, thank you for being here, and we will try and support you where and when we can.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Were there any other questions before Terrell signs off?
No, just a comment, maybe, Gwen, on supporting you. I've been trying to share out the links to these great presentations we've been having through this committee on social media. So I'll post it, because you did a brilliant job of giving an orientation. But in general, I think it's wonderful if we can leverage our networks for any presenters coming forward about programs and services to kind of create access to this recording. I find it's actually being received very well. So glad we're having these presentations on a range of information, including the Alzheimer's Society. But yeah, we'll make sure that that's posted.
Absolutely, that's great.
May I ask?
Go ahead.
I'll add. I was just wondering if you have, or have you considered giving a little bit more brief presentation to the seniors centers in Barrie? Nothing, I don't mean as involved as this one, but just some kind of information like at a group session. And of course, COVID's here right now, but I'm not sure if you have in the past.
Sure, we are happy to go out and talk to many different groups. We have a speakers bureau, which is a kind of a series that some of our volunteers present, but certainly the public education coordinators, if there's anyone in our community that's looking for a presentation, and I will keep it shorter. I know I'm a talker, I apologize, but so much good information to share. But no, certainly call our office or email myself. If you'll have my link in the email, but reach out. We are more than happy to give, because again, education and awareness is great for building advocacy, right? So please reach out. We'll be happy to do that.
Carol, please know that I truly appreciate the length of your presentation. I wouldn't have wanted it too much shorter. It's just been truly enlightening. I was just thinking if you had something because if there's a group of just seniors, then sometimes, you know, they just may not be tuned in to everything that you're saying. That's why I mentioned a smaller presentation. This presentation was amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Paulette. And yeah, we have all types of presentations. So we'd be happy to find one that's suitable to each and every group that's looking for some information. That's
great. Thank you.
Yes, yes, and thank you for attending and for everything you shared with us today. I found a lot of stuff I thought I knew but didn't know. So our next presenter is Snow Angels, Adam McLannis. Is he here?
So unfortunately, our presenter did end up having another commitment for 11, and unfortunately he had to drop off. But I am going to be rescheduling him probably for our January meeting. So he and I behind the scenes did kind of have a bit of a back and forth of information. And I told him I would share this along with the committee. He had also sent the committee an email with his regrets about having to leave. But other than that, I thanked him for basically being on today.
Thank you, Brandy. Can we talk about a few things since we might have a little bit of time?
Absolutely. So there are just 2 discussion items, which will most likely be very quick for the committee to have. So we're scheduled till 12. So by all means.
Again, I apologize for taking that gentleman's time. Apologies for that. I should have been more mindful of the time.
I think it was a last minute thing that came up, which seems to be the theme of the day for a lot of people. So yeah, it's all good.
I'm going to probably leave now then, and I believe if there's no other presentations, and I wish everyone happy holidays and safe holidays, and thanks again for having me.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Terrell. Right back at you.
Thank you.
A while ago, I know I had brought up a couple of times the primary care living long-term care facility with transformative care that was supposed to be built out at 727 Bayfield Street, which is actually the border of Springwater and Barrie. And I'd asked many people why it wasn't being built. I finally got an answer. Apparently, Springwater was worried about being annexed by Barrie, and they created a buffer zone, which includes the land where primary care was going to be built. And that has been the holdup. It would have been a great opportunity, would have employed 300 people. Not only was it a 160 bed unit with the 16 bed pods for the transformative care, it also had assisted living and a hub for Georgian College where people could come and learn to be a caregiver and get some treatments, etc. And it's a great loss. And I don't know whether we'll be able to convince Springwater that building this one particular long-term care would be in everybody's advantage or not. I'm wondering if anybody knows any counselors in Springwater that I could approach. Maybe not.
I think
for another day.
Maybe an offline conversation, Gwen, but I would just say, you know, go to council if there's something Springwater specific around their intention or their rationale. Well,
I know it'd be difficult, but I thought it's worth asking. If you don't ask, you don't get. So that's my theory. Heather, anything in your area? Red Cross?
No, not really anything in particular to share. I was going to talk to the group at some point about doing a presentation if there's interest, which I assume that there may be.
Yes.
Yes, but nothing new is happening with us. We're just busy right now.
Okay. I am still working on the Senior Community Fund for CARP and to assist seniors living at or below the poverty line. You can go to barriecarp.org and get all the information there, including the rules and regulations of anybody who wants to be a recipient. We've had 4 recipients so far, and I think we might have another one coming from the Salvation Army. but it's hard to reach the recipients. They are not on social media, and there are very few newspapers, and it's really hard. We're reaching out to the groups to please, if you know somebody in that position, to make them aware of us and that we are there to help them in amounts between $100 and $500. So just getting my plug in. Did anybody else have anything they needed to bring up? Yes.
Oh, sorry. I could speak to the 55 plus centers in Barrie. The Allendale 55 plus center opened on November the 15th with graduated activities for seniors, in particular recreational and social activities. So check us out at barrie.ca and into the recreation page. We've made it as easy as possible to register directly using that page. Or folks can just show up to the Allendale or Parkview centers and ask for a tour or to get some information. Our newsletter and calendars are all available in person and on the website. So it is graduated programming. By that, I mean not all of our pre-COVID programs have returned, as some are considered of higher risk than others, but most of our programs have. CARD programs, active living programs, and some sports like table tennis and snooker and those kinds of things, walking club, those are all returned. What have not returned anything that involves food due to the higher risk for our participants. So do just check us out. We are seeing folks trickle in slowly and regaining as they gain confidence and coming out into the community. And they see that there is something there for them. They're returning to active living again, and we just encourage as much of that as possible.
Thank you, Heather. Anne-Marie, you were going to say something?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Heather, for that. And it was also more of a question for members. Knowing this time of year, I'm also seeing AMICA and other agencies, also looking at supporting seniors who might be isolated or might not have family this time of year. So I didn't know if there was time, Gwen, if members knew of anything like that we could help to highlight or showcase, or anything senior specific around adopting a senior. Sometimes I think I see agencies doing that as well.
I can speak to that a little bit. Senior Wish is the major organization that I know is involved with that. In fact, they've sponsored for us, I think 62 of my seniors this year. So the baskets are all actually sitting behind me in my office, ready to be distributed. But I think they are doing Adopt a Senior as well. There's probably not much time left. I would think that they've done most of their adopting out, but Senior Wish would be the place to go.
Anne-Marie, did the city not have a program where students called a senior once a week?
I'm not sure, Heather, if you're aware of that. I'm not aware of that specifically. Like,
no, I'm not. Yeah, sorry, I'm not aware of that specific program. It may have existed in the past, but it wasn't one that was just pre-COVID.
Yeah, there was one, and I'm not sure if this is aligned to what you're thinking, Gwen. I think Simcoe County at one point in time actually had a long-term care home initiative where individuals could become pen pals with seniors, and there was some letter writing. So looking at the Simcoe County social media sites might also be an avenue to look at. I know there were auctions that were happening recently to raise funds, but also then to go towards, I think, some programming.
Mm-hmm. We did run a program similar to that in the summer through our day camps. Our day camp sites, each site wrote letters to seniors, and that's what we called it. And it was a type of pen pal program that was developed this past summer. And we linked each site. We had about 5 different sites, and they linked up with one specific long-term care facility during the summer. And it started up a little bit late, but it really got rolling through August, and it's consideration for our winter break and March break programs to continue with that, where the campers, children age 6 to 10 or 6 to 12, write specific notes of encouragement to the seniors, and our staff drop it off to the activity coordinators there, who go around and give specific letters. Some are done individually, individual campers, and some are done collectively as a group for the younger children who are unable to write themselves. Those 6 and 7-year-olds receive some assistance with a group activity. So it was very successful, and we will plan to continue that through the winter break and the March break this year.
Great.
Can I follow up on that? Do we have time? Heather, I might put you on the spot here a little bit, so just let me know if I need to redirect to broader recreation services. But on that note around kind of connecting, do we see in general, across the city, as we kind of have struggled through COVID, but also as we're returning to programs and services, some I'm finding, and I'm not sure if this is true, are not necessarily subsidized as much as they were before, and might be returning to kind of a full fee. Are we structuring any type of programs or services for seniors at a discount? I know we do the transit is free on Thursdays for seniors, but are we actually incorporating some of that consideration into programming, or are we seeing seniors who otherwise would have connected with programs and services not being able to afford it?
From a recreation standpoint, there's lots of opportunities. So I can tell you that Senior Centers Without Walls, which is a virtual program that was offered throughout Barrie during COVID, was a completely free program and continues to be a free program. And again, folks can find out about Senior Centers Without Walls through contacting me directly, heather.kenahan@barrie.ca, or by just going to the Barrie website and clicking on the seniors recreation page. Information is there. So Senior Centers Without Walls virtual program is offered twice daily, Monday to Friday. There are 10 activities a week that are done virtually, that are available free of charge to any older adult in the community. And once they contact me, it's a simple way of me getting them in touch with our partner service called Archer Service, and they link up directly there. So that's one great opportunity. Another is the membership. The 55 Plus Center membership. It's about $56 a year for full participation in both Allendale and Parkview 55 Plus centers. Should that be a barrier, there is an opportunity to apply for subsidy through Rec Access. And by just showing up to any of our recreation centers, or by going online to barrie.ca on the recreation page, you can find Rec Access has a full page of how to register. We have copies. If there's a printing barrier for printing those papers, we do have paper copies at each of our recreation centers, and our customer service staff are very well trained on and can help us, any City of Barrie resident, on how to apply for Rec Access. Rec Access is available for all residents, not those just simply 55 plus. It is a subsidy program, and it provides an allotment of money as a kind of deposit onto the account once the approval process is made, which is done pretty much on site by one of our recreation supervisors. Then they will be provided with a certain amount of money based on their income and also based on their family size. A certain amount of money that can be used for any recreation program. That could be a drop-in program, it could be a membership, and it could be a registered program like a course. So then participants have the freedom to make that choice for themselves. So lots of opportunity. And again, if any folks are wanting assistance with navigating these opportunities, they can contact me at Parkview Center or heather.kenahan@barrie.ca.
That's great information. Thank you, Heather. Anne-Marie?
Thank you, Heather. And in addition, and I guess I'll mention it here, Gwen, and then I invite members to reach out to me by email too, or maybe it's a future conversation, but I'm interested in maybe sponsoring something recreation related in the new year. We can make it a seniors focus, but was also wondering about if it could also be a bit of a pop-up around an introduction to programs and activities. I know we've talked about the all body swim at one point too, and some other pieces. So I'd love to know if members think we could do something collectively that might actually engage residents in the community. And if I can in some way support that through access with no fee, and then maybe have some information regarding programs and services, or about the Seniors Advisory Committee. We talked a bit about how do we be present in the community, and how do we also maybe invite others to get to know what this committee does, and get ready for the next term of this committee, and maybe drive some applications for involvement. So I'll throw that out there and see what you think. If there's a program like an all body swim or a try it pickleball, but a forum for which maybe as it's safe to do so, to get together, but to have a bit of a seniors focus and around our work in the community.
I think that'd be a great idea. And you know what would make it work would be a shuttle bus. And I don't know whether that could be arranged.
Yeah, or we make it on a Thursday where there's free transportation.
Yes.
That we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. The Thursday could work. There is opportunity to work with transit. I had a plan that actually didn't work out, but anyway, we'll use it again for taking seniors down to the 5 Points Theater for a special event there for Christmas. But unfortunately, the plan sort of fell apart. It was just too quick in a turnaround in planning. But we'll look for an opportunity like that again, and maybe there's something there for Friendship Day, which is our variation of Valentine's Day, for like a Friendship Day event where folks can participate at the centers or at the 5 Points. Or there's lots of, I have lots of creative ideas. It's just getting things in motion. But transit is more than willing to provide assistance from each of the Allendale and Parkview centers, which has better parking than our downtown.
Thank you so much, Heather. Look forward to all your ideas. Lucia, did you have anything to add?
No, nothing. We continue to have our by appointment only tech training in our 90 Collier Street office, and all other programs continue online and virtually, still very successful. I think we're kind of preparing for another winter of successful virtual programming. I think so. Just we carry on. That's it from CNIB for now. Thank you.
Evan, did you have anything?
I don't really. This is our last week of virtual programming before the holidays. But there is, for anyone who might have any 2S LGBTQ+ clients or know of anyone in community, Fierté Simcoe Pride is doing a winter feast next week, which is free for community members. They also deliver if there are people who have mobility or access issues. Otherwise, no. We were also hoping to get back to in-person programming in January, but COVID always seems to have other plans for us. So we will keep you up to date as to when we will be returning. Yeah, for now, virtual programming will start back again first week of January for us. So
Thank you. I maybe should just mention that the CARP membership meeting is January the 18th, and we're going to have a presenter talking on scams because they're so prevalent right now. And we thought maybe that would be who we should have. Everybody's welcome, but of course you have to be double vaccinated at the Shriners Hall on January 18th at 7 p.m. I guess anything else, Brandy?
The only thing that I have is I'm just confirming that the consensus is to keep the meeting scheduled as they are going in 2022. And that's the only thing that I have.
I believe January 24th is our next meeting.
Absolutely, correct.
And that's okay with everybody? Great, I think we've got consensus on that. So thank you so much, everybody. I wish you happy holidays, safe and happy holidays. And Brandy, so sorry to hear about your sister.
Thank you.
And yes, Emery, I would love to have a conversation with you. So take care, everybody, and see you on the 24th, if not before.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Keep
Thank
well,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
All the best.